I'd like to call to order the December 18, 2024 meeting of the City of West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Board. Can we please begin with a roll call?
Kyle Waters.
Here.
Gabriel Jaroslavsky.
Here.
Kristen Kellogg.
Here.
Amanda Skyer.
Here.
James Murphy.
Here.
Jeffrey Sheldon.
Here.
Gerald Bucksbaum.
Here.
Okay, we now move on to approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do we have any changes to the agenda as presented?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Any changes by members of the board, or do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda for tonight's Historic Preservation Board meeting.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, we now move on to approval of the minutes from the November 26, 2024 meeting. Any changes to the meeting minutes as presented in your packet? Okay, seeing none. Can someone please move to approve?
I move to approve the minutes for the November 26, 2024 Historic Preservation Board meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We now move on to the report of the Historic Preservation Planner.
Good evening, board members. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays for everybody. I just wanted to mention that we have a problem with some of the mailers for some of the cases. The mailers for case 819 Biscayne were swapped, unfortunately, with the mailers for 155 Pershing Way. So the neighbors for each of those cases received the wrong notification. I just want to make a note that the mailers are courtesy mailers that we send. The requirements for the code is posting the site for demolitions and new construction. The only case in this case, or the only case for these proposals that is 819, and we posted the site with the required notification 7 days before the meeting. So it is in compliance with the requirements of the code for advertisement. So, but I just wanted to mention because some people notified us and we realized of the problem.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
That's all I have for today.
Great, thanks. We now move on to the remarks by the chairperson. The matters before us are quasi-judicial in nature, which means we base our decisions on substantial competent evidence that comes before us. We ask you to please keep that in mind when making your comments. For each case, the applicant will have an opportunity to present for 10 minutes. 15 minutes will be allotted if there is a demolition involved. Following the applicant's presentation, staff will make their presentation, and then after that, we will open it to public comment, which will be limited to 3 minutes per person. And if you are planning to speak during public comment, please be sure to fill out a card, which will be found in the outer room there, and turn it in to the board secretary here. And after public comment, if the applicant would like a rebuttal, they are able to do so at that time. And following that rebuttal, we will enter into executive session where we will render our decision. To lead into this, we need to let you know if we've had any conversations outside of this meeting. And so we'll now declare any ex parte communications.
As to all matters before our committee this evening, I, Gerald Bucksbaum, have not had ex parte communications, received written communications, conducted an investigation, made a site visit, nor received expert opinions. I request that the disclosures in all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on this evening's agenda, I, Jeff Sheldon, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, nor have I received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to matter, all items on tonight's Historic Preservation Board meeting, December 18th, 2024, I, James Murphy, I have had ex parte communications with consent item 6.2, file 2495. The applicant, Sarah Pardue, is one of my employees. at the Town of Palm Beach. On matter file 2481, I received an email from the architect Patrick Mayfield that I did not respond to. I've had no other ex parte communications with the balance of the agenda. Aside from those two, I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Amanda Skyer, as to matter 24-81, 501 35th Street, I also received the same email from the architect Patrick Mayfield and did not respond. For matter 24-93, 230 Pershing Way, I did have a meeting with the architect Rafael Rodriguez and the developer. The property is my next door neighbor. In addition to that, there were written communications pertaining to setting up that meeting. And then as to all matters on the agenda for this evening, I spoke with both of the planners about all the matters on the agenda tonight. And other than that, I have not conducted any investigations, site visits, or received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on tonight's agenda, I, Kristen Kellogg, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matter in tonight's agenda, I, Gabe Jaroslavsky, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on tonight's agenda, I, Kyle Waters, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation, nor have I made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. Is there anyone here to speak on an item not on the agenda tonight? If so, now is the time to do so. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to swearing in of our speakers. If you plan to speak, please rise and raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have 3 consent cases tonight. Can we please have a motion to approve?
I move to approve consent cases 24-78A, 319 Cordova Road, 24-95, 213 Graham Avenue, and lastly 24-77B, 2000 Parker Avenue. Excuse me.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. If you are 319 Cordova Road, 213 Grayman Drive, or 2000 Parker Avenue, your case has been approved. Our first continued case of the night is 24-81, 501 35th Street.
Good evening, members of the board. Patrick Mayfield with Daly Jansen Architects. This is thank you again for your time to let us represent our proposal at 501 35th Street. We took into consideration all the comments that we received at the last hearing we were at in October, and took the last 2 months to really restudy the project. We found it very helpful, the feedback that you all provided in the last round, in addition to some of the concerns of the neighborhood. A few neighbors did show up last time. And I just want to briefly summarize what their primary concerns about the project were, given that we are at a unique intersection in the neighborhood where we have predominantly two-story homes to the west of us and one-story homes to the east of us on 35th Street. Most of the neighborhood, and I think the consensus of the board last time, was that the proposal was just too much mass on the street, was oversized. There was also some specific commentary regarding the entryway feature and its diagonal relationship to the intersection and the clubhouse across the street. But just generally also the size of the project in relationship to the surrounding. I'll move forward to the site plan. So you can see the previous site plan. We essentially had a full two-story body, L-shaped structure with the entry on the diagonal. This was fully two-story on both the Spruce and 35th Street frontages. And what we have done alternatively here, in deference to the neighbors to the east, we've essentially taken the entire east wing of the home and pushed that back down to one story. So with the exception of the entry foyer here, this whole portion along Spruce, the living area, back of service area, garage area is now all one story. Overall, we've reduced the project by 713 square feet, and that's building area under roof, including AC and garage. We did look at the garage itself as an opportunity. Previously, we had a two-car that was loaded from the alleyway, and we felt it was more appropriate to reduce that to just a single car garage with an open carport, and then actually have that cut coming from Spruce at the northwest corner. We found that to be more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. We reallocated some of the program of the project to a small bedroom wing for the master on the west side, which is also one story, and then a detached rear accessory in the far northwest of the parcel. Lastly, we reconfigured the entry. There were some concerns about just establishing that prominent relationship to the diagonal and the intersection and having sort of almost an open space there on the corner. We've kind of hearkened away from that to de-emphasize the house's relationship to the intersection and brought the entry back on axis with 35th Street, facing that with a much more subdued entry sequence. And I think also some of the commentary previously, this was a round tower feature, and we've reverted that to a more faceted octagonal tower shape, which we think has more precedent in the neighborhood in terms of the likeness to other projects. Just want to give you the before and after of the rendering from the street. You can see the changes that we've made in terms of the massing, and essentially that whole east side on Spruce now is brought down considerably. In terms of the style and the ornamentation of the structure, the color palette, material palette remains the same. You can see how we've kind of disallowed that open sort of off the sidewalk public realm now, and we'll be treating the yard area as very private with a hedge and 4-foot fence. I want to emphasize here on the changes at the second floor level before and now current, just the extent to which we have reduced that second floor program area. It's really just now getting up the stairs, 2 small bedrooms, baths, and then the second story of the accessory in the rear, which is extremely removed from the street frontages. You can see those primary 35th Street elevation and east elevation along Spruce as we're now proposing. We did eliminate one of the chimneys in the proposal. We brought the height down on the remaining chimney from what was previous. You can see that west 1-story wing of the master bedroom suite. And along Spruce, you can see the very narrow 2-story accessory, which again, I want to emphasize this is fairly removed, more than 60 feet from Spruce. So, it is far back from the street, although it doesn't appear so in this elevation. I won't go through these details on the changes to the facades. This is the elevation of the accessory with the exterior stair, which is accessing the second level, and we're actually using that stair to disguise the equipment that's located behind it. And I did just want to point out again the geometry of the stair entry itself. We felt the faceted or octagonal geometry was more appropriate based on other precedents in the neighborhood, seen here on 32nd, here on 31st, again a sort of faceted angled entry bay, again here on 31st Street. Similar, not the same, but similar in terms of just the faceted geometry rather than the round. And these were examples of some other homes in the neighborhood that had similar features to what we were proposing. I'm happy to go through them in more detail. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Questions of the applicant?
I have a question. First of all, I think that your revision has responded, by my recollection, to our comments in ACES, particularly with the massing and the bringing down the roof lines, and it's, I feel, created a very interesting kind of sculptural element with all the different roof heights. I want to ask you about your kind of thought process with your client about the change of the garage, where it was oriented off the alley and accommodated 2 vehicles versus now there's the 1 car in the street facing. Was that due to neighbor concerns with the garage? I don't remember that.
No,
narrative.
It was actually more just the functionality of loading the 2-car garage from the alleyway. Taking a second look at that, we felt that layout was not as easy to get into and out of especially with the limitations of the curb cut on the alleyway itself. So we felt that even though we're reducing to one car, we still have the carport, which, you know, carports are certainly still a feature in this neighborhood. And so we still have the functionality of 2 parking spaces and just a much easier way to get out onto Spruce. I'll also note that because of the additional setback from the previous, there's still room to fully park a car in the drive in front of the garage, whereas in the previous iteration there was not that space between the garage door and the alley.
For me, that's kind of the only misstep in this revision is that garage treatment. Maybe the drive apron is a little too wide, but I think the revision is just really well done, and the move towards almost a courtyard environment is, I think, really exciting for a corner location like this, and I think it's an impressive revision.
Thanks.
Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you. Oh.
Good evening, Valentina Broglia, planner with the City of West Palm Beach, presenting HPB case number 2481 for demolition and new construction. The applicant did a good job at showing the revised drawings from the continued case in October. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of Historic Preservation Board case number 24-81 for the request of demolition of the existing non-contributing structure and new constructions as it meets and complies with sections 94-49A 4A 1 through 9 of the zoning land development regulations and section 94-49.3 standards 9 and 10 of the Secretary of Interior standards of rehabilitation. I also wanted to add that there were some concerns from the public that this was a contributing structure, and per staff's research, it is not a contributing structure. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Any questions of staff? Okay.
Great job.
We have 2 public comment cards. The first is Louise Stoney.
Hi, my name is Louise Stoney. I am a resident of Old Northwood, and I actually live on 35th Street, about 4 doors down from this home. With all due respect to this historic board, I want to say that I think the focus is not on the right issue. I listened to the hearing. I wasn't able to come the last time, and I listened today. All the focus has been on whether or not this new home is going to fit into the neighborhood, and you're all giving this very careful thought to that. My question is, why is it okay to demolish a perfectly sound home in a historic district? Isn't this the Historic Preservation Board? It's my understanding that Northwood is a historic district and that we should not be knocking houses down unless they cannot be restored. I understand that you're saying that it can be knocked down because it is, quote, non-contributing. What makes it non-contributing? Because at the time that we asked for historic designation, it wasn't old enough. It certainly is now. It's a mid-century modern home. If we start allowing every mid-century modern home in Northwood to be knocked down, we will wipe out a piece of West Palm Beach history that is very valuable. There is literally no reason to knock this house down except that the person who purchased it thinks it's too small. But I live there. I've seen this home. I knew well the woman who lived there beforehand. She kept the house in good repair. Since the two LLCs have bought it, we've had to call code multiple times because it hasn't been maintained. So I just want to say I believe that it's a responsibility of this preservation board to preserve our homes in Northwood. And if we start allowing all of these non-contributing homes to be knocked down, you will completely destroy the character of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia Moffett.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sylvia Moffett. I live at 501 35th Street, 513 rather. I'm right next door, just west of the proposed building. I don't think that they've taken the mass down enough to be approvable. I know that you all think it's a wonderful drawing, but if you walk the neighborhood and see our street, it's a very, very large house, and it doesn't really fit in with the other houses on the block, in my opinion. I mean, to take it down 715 square feet, it's nothing. It's like a room. I mean, it just doesn't seem like enough thought was gone into this. And I know the LLC, as Louise Stoney mentioned, hasn't been keeping up the property. They don't care about how the neighborhood is surviving around its neglect. And I think that's going to go forward in the future. They're not going to care exactly what this house is going to be used for. Maybe they're going to turn it into a sober home. We don't know. And an LLC who's not going to buy it and live in it, it's a real concern. And I also echo Louise's idea. We are the first designated neighborhood for to be historic in the whole city. That's Old Northwood. You know, you all have, I think, a very good idea of what it means to be historic. So please don't approve this. It's just too big still. I mean, 715 down, I mean, 3,900 square feet. That's really, in some instances, twice as large as some of the other houses on the street. It'll just really be too large. It won't fit in. And there's always the fear of what does the LLC do with it. So I hope that you will consider that and not just say, nice drawing, I'm glad you listened to us. I don't think they listened to us as well as they could have. It should be smaller. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you who don't know, Ms. Moffett was a city commissioner for many years. Thank you for your service. And Louise, I just want to respond to your comments, and I certainly have the same concerns across all of our historic districts, those resources from our more recent past that are not deemed contributing for one reason or another. And I myself live in a mid-century house that I voluntarily designated because it was considered non-contributing. So I certainly understand your concern, and I believe it's a valuable part of the development of West Palm Beach. And so I think as far as being able to prevent the demolition, because it's non-contributing, I don't think we have any way of doing that, and I'll let our attorney speak to that. But I would recommend that perhaps looking into the last time the neighborhood was surveyed to see if there are resources that you can capture as contributing. And I know in a lot of the historic districts, it's been led by the residents. So that's something that the city doesn't necessarily need to hire a consultant. It's something that residents can coordinate with the city to conduct themselves. But I think that would be the most proactive response to perhaps prevent more demolitions of mid-century modern resources, because we're certainly seeing this in historic districts all over the city. So thank you for both of you for taking the time. And Valentina, I don't know, do you mind, I obviously you get a rebuttal, but in 1 second, do you mind speaking, well, first I'd like to hear from you, Melissa, about non-contributing and what that allows and does not allow, and then Valentina, if you could speak to the size of the lot in relationship to the size, scale, and mass regulations for Old Northwood. So, Melissa, please.
If it's non-contributing, the property owner has a right to be able to demolish the structure because it's not a contributing property.
And we have no way of preventing that?
No, I mean, it would be unwise. Let's just put it this way. The property owner would have a right, or would have, it could be considered a takings under property law, which would mean that the city would have to compensate the property owner.
Thank you. Valentina?
So per the zoning regulations, the old Northwood Historic District has a FAR and a lot coverage that is per property. So lots up to 7,499 have a lot coverage of 30% and an FAR of 0.50. Lots from 7,500 to 9,999 have a lot coverage of 25% and 0.45 of FAR. And 10,000 square feet and over lots have a lot coverage of 20% and an FAR of 0.40. Now, for those of you who don't know what lot coverage and FAR are, lot coverage is anything that basically has a roof over by the zoning code definitions. If it's open on more than 2 to 3 sides, it reduces a 50% from the required lot coverage. And FAR is the total square feet of all structures that have a roof over them. And these are just the definitions from the zoning code. So this property in particular, it does meet the FAR and the lot coverage that the zoning code permits.
And is it, I guess, maxing it out per se, or where does it fall within? So what is it? Obviously is probably the largest of the lots that you listed. You listed 3 different sizes, so it'd be the 10,000 and above.
Correct. Yes, it's one of the biggest lots in the old Northwood Historic District, so they are to have a 20% lot coverage and 0.40. Do that, they reduce the massing and remove that second floor. They do actually meet the FAR, and they're not maxing it out, and they do meet the lot coverage as well.
Okay, so they're coming in under.
A little bit under, I believe.
Okay, I'll let you. Thank you. I'm sure you can speak to that.
No.
Thank you, Valentina. Patrick, thank you.
Certainly. Yeah, just on that one item, our current proposal is a floor area ratio of 0.32 of an allowable 0.4. So if you think about that in relative terms, the house could be roughly a third of a size larger and still be allowed within the zoning code. With respect to the other comments, I certainly appreciate what has been brought up. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, it is by right that this owner wishes to build something different on the lot, and we feel that this is a very thoughtful proposal that we think will certainly add value to the neighborhood, and potentially one day it itself could be landmarked or listed as part of the neighborhood. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go into executive session. Would anyone like to start us off with some points to consider? I think, James, you were very favorable to the changes that have been made.
I certainly empathize with the residents that spoke up. I know very well about design review commissions having the regulatory authority to deny resources, or in this case, not deny the demolition of resources. So I did critically review the plans based on you were correct in the statement, on the proposal before us, not about the demolition of the existing property. And I do believe that based on the October submittal that this is very successful in the reduction of the mass, in my opinion. Putting the 2-story portion next to the abutting property, which is 2-story. The reduction altogether of the east wing to 1-story, I think, is very successful. Perhaps there could be an exploration of lowering the south elevation first floor ceiling height. I think it's about 12 feet. I was going to engage an executive session if that could be lowered a little bit. But, you know, I, for one, do find it to be not out of character with the immediate area.
Thank you. Any further thoughts?
I wasn't here for the original presentation of this project, so I'm not fully in tune with the initial comments that were made on this. Just speaking to the design itself, since that's what's before our commission and what we're able to speak to, I do agree with Mr. Murphy's comments relating to the garage, since there's 2 street faces and then there's an alley that's tailor-made for this specific purpose. It's also onto an artery street, so it's the busier of the 2 streets, and there's a bike lane there as well. So I would be in favor of reorienting the garage towards the alley, as well as in terms of the general massing of the structure. I do feel that it meets our criteria as set forth in our compatibility standards.
Any further comments? Well, I certainly appreciate how responsive you were to our comments, and I also agree that it's a meaningful reduction, and certainly I appreciate your respect of the neighboring properties and how you've attributed the massing. And I would definitely support that condition of turning the garage. And thank you for also, Ms. Kellogg.
So sorry to interrupt. I just arrived and started traffic was super bad. I really wanted to make a comment.
We're in executive session, sir. We've already done public comment and rebuttal.
Well, then you guys scheduled it for 5 o'clock Wednesday. Good job. Thanks.
I mean, I would ask the applicant if you're comfortable, to step out of process and let him speak. You're saying, I'm seeing a no.
I'm sure the rest of the folks here would like to move the agenda along.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So going back to the condition of turning the garage, I would be supportive of that condition. Any further comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Murphy, do you want to make the motion, since you had mentioned a reduction in a ceiling height somewhere?
Yeah, well, what do you feel about that ceiling height? Do you see what I'm
Oh, yes,
referring
I'm
to?
sorry. I'm sorry, I missed that. Yes, you also said that, which I do think that might help address maybe some of the neighbors' concerns about the massing.
Can you clarify which portion of the building you're talking about, the ceiling height?
The south-facing ground floor is,
The main two-story volume?
yeah, I think it's a 12.5-foot ceiling height.
That's the floor to floor.
So what's the headroom?
It's at 10. We have 8-foot heads and a 10-foot ceiling.
And Patrick, have you explored a scheme where the garage is just as simple as reorienting it for two-car access?
As opposed to the versus
current
the carport?
configuration.
I think the current configuration could easily just be oriented to the north with the open carport facing the street.
It's very different from anything else in our neighborhood.
I'd appreciate it if the audience would not comment.
Oh, sorry, first time audience.
I think we could certainly orient this such that the garage itself is located further to the west with the carport along the road.
I was more thinking that there would be no curb cut on Spruce.
Correct. We would relocate the curb
Okay,
cut to
okay, thank you.
the alleyway.
And so the carport would be facing the alley or
The
and
carport
Spruce?
would be facing Spruce, almost as it just appear as a pergola.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have the floor to floor is. The floor to floor is only 12 feet. We could try and reduce that by 6 inches.
I can try a motion. Is there only one motion needed? You don't
Two.
need for
One
the demolition?
for the demolition and one for the new construction.
I move that Historic Preservation Board approve the application number 24-81 for demolition in accordance with the demolition guidelines as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted in the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
We still have to make a motion for the new construction.
I move that. I'm sorry. I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number 2481 for new construction in accordance with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10, as well as the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitutes competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and the intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach. the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10. As set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the city's land development and city zoning and land development regulations. The conditions include the following: that the proposed site plan shall not be approved as presented, there shall be no curb cut along Spruce Avenue, and the one-car garage and carport shall be reoriented to face the alley direction.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Project approved. Thank you. Our next case is 24-93, 230 Pershing Way.
Which is the one we said recently?
This is the most recent. I got all these plans.
Yeah, that one.
This one?
No, that one.
The first one or the landscape?
No, that one.
This one?
PowerPoint, which one?
So it's this one? Okay. Yes.
Where's the start?
That's the start. That's the first one.
For the record, Rafael Rodriguez, architect for 230 Pershing. Just two issues I want to clarify here from the staff report. We are only going for the exception for the FAR, not coverage. You can't do both. And I'd like to address the two items which we didn't comply with. We complied with everything else, one of them being height and the other one being size, scale, bulk, mass, and volume. This is the existing residence on 230 Biscayne. I'm sorry, projects mixed up. Pershing. You can tell it's a one-story Pershing with a front-loaded garage, and then there's this two-story area to the back. This is one-story, another one-story residence on the block on Pershing. There's actually 3 one-story residences. The majority of the homes on Pershing are 2 stories. There's 20 lots between Flagler and Olive, with the exception of the larger lots on the water, which are 10,000 square feet. The majority of homes are 2 stories. And also, our lot is 63 feet wide. The majority of the lots on that block are 75 feet wide. This is a new construction that I think got approved a couple of months ago. I spoke to the architect, and he was nice enough to send me the drawings, and it's located on our streetscape. Existing houses that were built, I believe, before the historic guidelines. As you can tell, front-loaded garages, which is something that we did not want to do in this case because of the minimum width of the lot, which is only 63. So if you take away the required setbacks, you have a house that's basically 40-something feet wide. We didn't want a majority of the elevation to have garage doors. Another feature that is common on this street is balconies or verandas on second floors overlooking the street. This is the house to the west, 224 Pershing. Again, front-loaded garages. They do, however, have a one-story portion of the house to break up the massing a little bit. 225 Pershing. Again, we worked on this project. Typical details: balconies, outriggers, T&G soffits, barrel tile. Some of the elements we incorporated in our design also. This house directly across the street. It's a big house, as you can see, 3 stories. This is the house immediately to the west, 234 Pershing. It's an existing contributing structure, which is 1 story. This is the house on the northwest corner. Again, a larger lot. It's 100 foot wide. The house immediately to the west, 2 houses over. Again, larger lot, 100 foot wide, 2-story house. This is pictures of the existing home. It was built in 1954. Again, let's take a look at our survey here. It's 63 feet wide. And according to our lot size, we're allowed a coverage requirement of 30% and an FAR of 15%. And a height of 25 feet to the median roof height. This is our existing, proposed site plan. The house is divided. Basically, it's an H-shaped plan. Main house, and then a two-story guest house at the rear of the property. The main house, first floor, is 1,815 feet, and then the second floor is 1,547 square feet. So there's 3,300 square feet in the main house alone, and then the guest house is an additional 549 square feet. I'd like to compare the existing site plan with the proposed site plan that we're doing. Some of the interesting things I discovered is that the existing coverage of the existing site plan is 31.7%. So this coverage is above what is allowed today. And also the FAR is 50.3, and these areas are taken from the property appraiser's office. So again, this house cannot be built today because of the FAR requirements. So if you take the house that we designed and just the main house, our coverage requirements would be 25%, and our FAR will be 46%. The design decision to not have the garage doors on the front and have an accessory structure at the rear with a one-car garage actually pushed us to 54%, which is allowable under the exceptions for historic preservation. By doing it also, we had to move the setbacks in further 2 feet. So our setbacks on the west side is 12 feet as opposed to 10 feet, and it's 7 feet on the east side as opposed to 5 feet. First floor, H-shaped plan, main house, guest house in the back. And we also took advantage of the landscape exception we thought was critical because of the size of the lot, being able to get access to the garage in the back. We have a plan designed by Don Scaron. He'll talk to you about the landscaping after I'm done with the presentation. Second floor, really composed of two bedrooms and additional master suite on the second floor. And then there is a guest room above the garage. I'd like to address the height issue first. Okay, so we were going to present last month this project, and then we realized that we were way over the FAR and the coverage. So we went back and took a look at it, and we reduced the height of the roof. Right now, the roof to the high point of the roof is actually 24 feet, 10 inches. The code allows 25 feet to the median height. Our median height roof is 23 feet, 8 inches. So well below what the requirements are. And if you go to the streetscape here, you can see our property here in the hatch is pretty much below or just in line with the existing heights of the roofs in the neighborhood. We also have a one-story portion, which I will address in the plan here, abutting the west side. Again, 12 feet setback on the west side, 7 feet setback on the east side, which will allow us to have 54%. Elevation of the guest house, very simple, one-car garage, and there's steps on the north elevation to go up to the second floor. South elevation of the guest house, east elevation of the main house. There is a fireplace, an exterior fireplace, wood burning. And then this is the west elevation with access on this side to the one-car garage at the rear of the property. Wall section details that we incorporated. Windows will be impact-rated aluminum windows, and here is the rendering of the home. On the west side, you can see a one-story portion, which will be the family room. There is a balcony overlooking the street, and then the full two-story portion on the east side. I'll invite Don Scowen to, if there's any questions, before I invite the landscape architect to speak.
Any questions of the architect?
I have a question. You presented last month?
No. We deferred last month, so that's what continued this month.
Thank you. I missed that. You had I'm curious. One of your reference drawings or images of the street was a white building that kind of had a little bit of similar massing as you. I think the address is 225 Pershing. It's across the street from you.
This one?
No.
Oh.
Before.
Oh, this one.
I think it's
Yes.
that one. You don't have a face on?
No, I'm sorry, no.
I was curious as the lot width of that. It looks like it's a little bit bigger, but not much bigger than
Yes,
yours.
we renovated this home
Okay.
a couple of years ago, and the lot is 75 feet.
And yours is
63 feet.
63.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What is the current ceiling height in both floors here?
Yes, I'm sorry?
What is the current ceiling height that you have on the ground floor and on the second floor?
So we have 11'3" from the first floor to the second floor, and if you account for the floor trusses, probably 2 feet, so it's 9 feet. And then the second floor, it's 9 feet from to bearing from the slab.
Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Let me just move it to.
Thank you, Don Scowen with BGS Landscape Architecture and Engineering. As you well know, that landscape is not required for historic preservation, unfortunately, but I think it should be. So we were invited to study this project and study the neighborhood and try to look at the project. That's a 60-foot, it's a small lot project in an infill type environment, and needed a lot more consideration for landscape than your normal project. If you can see the development or the transition of that neighborhood, it is transitioning to 2 stories, and obviously landscape is becoming more and more important, and can be something as to help blend a lot of the 2 stories to this 2-story structure, 2-story transition into and within 1-story buildings. So when we looked at it and looked at this project, one of the main problems was that it was 60 feet wide, and that you can only have a 25% hardscape portion in the front setback as well. So that really hinders parking and forces a building that's that needs some side parking and a little bit of front parking. A lot of that's usually taken care of with a circular driveway. Our client in this case preferred more of a pull-in, pull-out type of situation. And then the driveway along the west side is kind of casual and at least tries to be casual in a sense that it's thin and It's not going to be used very often. It most likely will be used more pedestrian-wise, and the 2 parking spaces will probably be used more as a as your daily in and out use of a vehicle. The garage in the back has a tendency of becoming more storage, if not a vehicle for, you know, that gets, you know, that very limited use, like let's say a classic car. So the challenge in the rear of this property was to try to blend these two sometimes incompatible activities into one. So we tried to blend the stone and grass, and to make the pool area feel large, but also have a car be able to back in and back out occasionally, or pull out and wash, or just look at, but we'll let the lines of those 2 activities bleed and blur together. So we tried to achieve that with our paving design. And then all it was just really adding landscape to try to really buffer corners and 2-story elements and try to be a good neighbor. This is the green drawing. We're talking about sea grapes, oak trees, coconut palms, native plant material, and grass. So really, I think really this says what we're going to do in the front of Pershing, and I think there is a subtleness and kind of like 235 across the street. There is some play in the architectural lines. The front facade, I think, fits in, and I think then the landscape definitely helps to help this to blend into the neighborhood, especially to the south or to the east. With that, I'll just leave that open for any questions or comments.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Valentina Broglia, planner with the City of West Palm Beach for Historic Preservation Board Case 24-93 for a demolition new construction at 230 Pershing Way. So the subject property is in the El Cid Historic District. It is a non-contributing structure on the south side of Pershing Way. The request is demolition of an existing non-contributing structure and new construction of a 2-story single-family residence in a Mediterranean revival style of approximately 3,938 square feet, with a detached 2-story structure in the rear of the property. And I will let the applicant clarify which special exemption he is trying to request, just because no, he told me FAR, and I think now he just corrected himself to, is it 4% lot coverage? The request for the special exemption? Okay, so yes, 4% lot coverage instead of the FAR that is noted in the staff report. Okay, so as you saw, all the drawings the applicant presented. So as a 2-part request, staff's recommendation for the demolition is approved with conditions as it complies with all standards in the zoning, land development, and regulations. The condition follows that the Historic Preservation Board must first grant the new construction plans before taking action of demolition of the existing structure. And staff's recommendation for new construction is denial, as staff does not feel like it does comply with section 94, 49, 4A2 and 4A9 of the zoning land development regulations. As the building height does not comply, the height of the building at street level should be visibly compatible with the height of surrounding buildings, and the size, scale, bulk, mass, and volume does not comply as the zoning code reads that the physical size, scale, bulk, mass, and volume should be compatible with the surrounding buildings without overwhelming them. Thus, this new proposed construction does not comply with section 94-49(3), the Secretary of Interior standards, standards 9 and 10. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you please leave that up?
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have any questions of staff? Can you explain the correction on the special exception? Is, like, I'm looking at the table in the staff report. Is the FAR still over what's allowable?
The FAR, I believe, is going to be complied with, and the lot coverage is going to exceed 4%. So that table that is on the staff report was taken from the project data table that the applicant provided me with, so maybe the applicant can touch on it.
Okay.
Can I address that?
Yeah, I'm confused.
Yeah, the maximum allowable FAR is 50%, but there are exceptions to FAR and coverage. We meet the coverage requirements, so we're not asking for exceptions coverage. We are asking 4% FAR exception, which we are doing with, actually, we have a detached accessory structure, which gives us the 4%, but we're also doing the landscape plan, which gives us 4%, but the maximum allowable is 4% for any specific project. So we're asking for 54% FAR as opposed to 50 with the exceptions, bringing in the home 2 feet additionally from the setbacks, which is a requirement for the exception for FAR.
Okay. I've never heard of a special exception applying for landscaping, considering we don't have purview for it. Does that apply here?
It does. It's in the zoning code that they can apply, as long as they work with the city's landscape planner and get approval from the city landscape planner. They could.
Okay.
Request that.
Thank you. Any further questions of staff? Yeah.
Valentina, does that process for the special exception, does that need a motion by this commission?
It does, yes. So in that section, it does say that the Historic Preservation Board must grant that with the landscape exception.
Okay. Any further questions of staff?
I actually have one for the applicant. I was just looking at let me see what sheet I'm on. The elevations, and for the first floor, it has the first floor, finished floor, and then it has to bearing, and it says that to bearing it's 9'6", but and I understand that there would be like an 1.5 inch difference, but you gave us 9 feet for the first floor ceiling height.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what the discrepancy is.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the drawing where that is.
Sure, I don't know. This is your presentation.
Which drawing is that?
Let me see what sheet I'm on. I'm on elevations, exhibit D, so north elevation.
Are you on the staff report?
It should be on that drawing as well, but yes, I'm in the staff report, but it's the same drawing. So the markers on the right, it has a first floor, finished floor, and then it has to bearing, and the bearing is 9'6".
So, you know,
Yeah.
okay, never mind.
So the 1-story portion on the front elevation, the bearing there is 9'6".
Okay.
The bearing, the top of slab, slab to slab is 11 foot 1 inch.
So you
So
have
that-
a different bearing height.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand. Okay.
Bearing height on the 1-story portion is lower.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions of staff?
I'm sorry, what was that, Amanda?
Oh, any further questions? Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment on this case? Yes. Yes, and when you're finished, if you could fill out one of the cards, but you can go to either podium.
All right. First off, thanks to the committee for what you guys do in maintaining the character of the neighborhoods that we live in. I live...
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Sorry. Kevin Lahat, and I live at 224 Pershing Way, which is the house next door to this, immediately to the east. I've lived in that house for the last 8 years with my family. Just wanted to give a little context to the perspective from the neighborhood on it, and I'm not sure that all the neighbors knew that the meeting was rescheduled to today. I guess first, this is a big house for a small lot, and I think those exact words have been used by some folks today at 4,000 square feet, roughly. You know, I think the main house seems to look roughly in line with some of the other two-story houses in terms of height, maybe in size. I think the main thing pushing the square footage up a lot for that lot is the guest house. The presenters, like, I respect you guys are doing your job and saying you want to be good neighbors. It's hard not to take that a little personally when that'll be putting a two-story wall across our backyard. So I get it. But the reason for the large square footage is a two-story guest house, and that's basically going to box in the surrounding yards. So that's it. But I appreciate your consideration, and thanks for everyone's work on this.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, would you like a rebuttal?
Yes, I just wanted to stress the design selections that we made, why we decided to design it this way. I think the main reason was to avoid the front-loaded garages that exist on homes that were built previous to the historic preservation guidelines, and also having a separate detached structure in the back for a garage is more traditional with the historic neighborhoods in West Palm Beach going back to the 20s. It occurs in Old Northwood, El Cid, and some other neighborhoods. That's where we took our cue from.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now enter into executive session. Would anyone like to start?
I just want to ask staff to, there was a question about the special exception. Is your staff report essentially the same as it was before that question, Valentina?
So I believe the applicant stated that he is requesting a 4% on the FAR instead of the lot coverage. So my staff report says that the FAR is getting, the exemption. So I believe it is correct. Just the numbers were off as the lot coverage is not at 29%. I think it might be right at 30%.
Okay. And you guys are recommending denial on the new structure?
New construction,
okay.
Yes.
I just want to be sure.
I could start. First of all, I think I've gone on record disagreeing with a few of my colleagues on front-loaded garages, that I'm not as anti as others on this dais. That said, I'm certainly not in support of a site plan such as this that proposes a garage and makes all of the maneuvers to provide a rear garage as an accessory structure, and yet then puts two perpendicular parking spots in the front yard. I just can't support that kind of program or lack of programming for the principal structure to have the enclosed garage. I think that there are the one-story portion, I think, begins to move this in a more compatible move to the neighboring properties and some of the split level, lack of a better word, properties in the immediate area. It also begins to show a sign of responding to your one-story neighbor. But there are real I find problems with overall scale and maybe lack of detail. That's just making this read like a big box to me.
I'll just speak to a few things that caught my eye based on the criteria by which we judge projects. It is extremely rare for staff to recommend denial of a new construction, and in deference to staff, I think that says a lot about the project because it's so rare. I can't actually think of a project anytime recently where it's been done. So that in and of itself, helps to inform us based on their expertise in this area. I think also just based on the first one, and I just had it, about setting orientation and setbacks, I think there's a little bit of work that needs to be done to pay deference to the neighborhood as well. In terms of the detailing, which Mr. Murphy mentioned, I think that, if your second floor is equal to your first floor, that's quite atypical for a historic house. I think that it would be easy to bring that down at least 6 inches to start to help with the way this mass is working. And even consider a rake soffit to help hide some of that mass as well. So we're not seeing so much of it straight on because it looks like it's just a flat soffit. And then I also question if the massing is actually too similar to 225 across the street. I think that I've pulled them both up, and I know the street well. Our office is down the street from it, but I think they read very similarly, and I think that that is an issue in this case with being too similar to the adjacent or to one of the nearby structures. So I think that there's a middle ground between paying deference to these historic structures and also making sure that it's scaled appropriately.
Any further discussion?
I'll actually add one more. I was going down my list and I just forgot one. The front entry, it's getting to details and maybe we're not there yet, maybe we are, but I think that the front entry needs to be restudied to take more cues from historic precedents. Specifically when I looked at the rendering, which I know is not an architectural drawing, it's an artistic interpretation, but I think that there's like a proportional issue with the front door element, and it just needs to reference the historic precedents more.
I also noted that in the presentation that it seemed to reference and I think justify the design based on a lot of the new construction that is existing on the street, which, as the architect noted, those projects pre-exist the size, scale, and mass regulations that are now in place. And I think there's at least 3 properties that were shown. I also noted in the architect's presentation that there was a greater setback between the one-story house and the house that's currently under construction, which I think those setbacks are critical when you have, basically a 2-story versus a 1-story house. I also noted the driveway. I don't think it's reflective of the development patterns of the street.
I just want to interrupt here. I think the applicant sees where this is going, and I think that they have asked and can verify that they would like, or I've asked if they can get a continuance. My recommendation was maybe to take a vote on the demolition and then continue the second portion, which is the special exception. So that was kind of the conversation that was going on.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is definitely going in the direction of a continuance, and I think just giving all the feedback possible to be helpful.
Right.
So that they can be successful the next time they come. I think I wanted to specifically mention 501 35th Street, which preceded this case, and how responsive they were to our feedback about stepping down to a 1-story and just being really deferential to the properties on either side. And so I think that applies to considering a larger 1-story element, and also the guest house in the back per the residents, the neighbors' comments. And as far as, I don't know if we ever bifurcate the motions like that.
I'm gonna let staff address it, and if you're not comfortable with that, that's fine.
I don't know if we've ever, I just don't think we've ever done that. I think we've always kept them together, because you can't get a demolition approval unless you're new construction.
That's true.
Approved.
That's true. Right. I mean,
and we did have a recent hiccup
right.
where a house was demolished.
Yes, you're right.
Before the new construction was approved.
Okay,
so.
I'm going to let staff address it, but
Sure.
well taken.
Okay. Yeah, so Valentina Broglia for the record. But that's why I made that condition in there with the demolition, if there was a motion to do that first, and then the new construction. And what the applicant is requesting is to continue the new construction motion to the next meeting, or, most likely.
Yeah, and I think the board is, I think what the chair is saying, that usually
it's not, right.
They don't bifurcate it, and they'll continue the whole case if they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was all.
Thank you. Any further feedback that we would like to give to the applicant?
Since we are giving feedback, it seems that there's a difference in what the important elements are, and there's been a lot of discussion about cars and parking and garage in the back. If that's an important aspect, perhaps focus on that. I mean, I don't know what that restudy looks like, but I think we're all here, we're kind of confused. It feels like I'm at a restaurant, I ordered something and it's just wrong. You want to send it back. So I think here, the plan forward definitely would be focused on the key elements that's important to the client. And if it is parking, then let's figure that out. But right now I'm just kind of confused. So that would be my feedback.
Thank you. Yeah, I think hopefully with the continuance, there might be some clarity in the disconnect between the staff report and what's presented, because I agree, I'm a little confused about what special exceptions and where that all applies. Any further feedback, or would someone like to make a motion to continue?
What is the date certain?
Would you like a month or 2 months, or?
Yeah, 1 month, January.
And what is the month of that? Valentina, what is the month? The date?
January 28th.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question of the board? I'm getting different feedbacks as you mentioned. Is it the massing that you still have a problem with? The 54%?
Are you asking?
Yes, I'm asking.
Personally, or the entire board?
The entire
Yeah,
board. Is it the
sure.
massing you still have a problem with?
I'll let,
I think we all have different aspects, but if we're going with bold points, massing. I mean, massing has been mentioned. A restudy the different elements of what is important, the walkway, the entryway. I mean, there's different elements that have been brought up. So, you know, I would say those are the 3-4 main points. I let the rest of the panel up here chime in.
We'll have to study that, yeah.
any clarifications by Mr. Murphy or Ms. Kellogg?
I will say the massing is my primary concern. You know, once we get the massing right, we can always make conditions for detailing if that's not quite there. But because the massing impacts the streetscape so heavily, I think that that's the primary concern, as well as what staff felt did not comply according to our compatibility standards.
Okay. Yeah, which is height and massing. But the height was well below what was.
Are you asking a question? Or are you restating your argument?
Yeah, I'm just going through it in my head.
Sure.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's an issue with the parking in front of the house also, in terms of not being a traditional element of the neighborhood.
Sure. If you have any precedent imagery to justify the design, we would be happy to review that.
The existing house has parking in the front of the house like that. But we can go back. We can address that next time.
Oh,
I can
okay.
show you photographs.
Okay.
But, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a vote?
I don't even know if a motion was the motion made?
No.
The motion was not made yet. Yeah.
I'll move to continue case number 24-93 for 230 Pershing Way to the January 28th Historic Preservation Board meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Your project is continued. We're now moving on to new business. Case number 24-94, 426 36th Street. It's
Good evening, Ana Maria Aponte, Assistant Development Services Director. This is HPB case 2494 is for the demolition, request by George Johnaides of Buildmore Contractors on behalf of Emily Gutierrez for the demolition of a non-contributing structure, accessory structure. The property is located at 426 36th Street. And the property includes a one-story Mission Revival contributing structure built in 1928. It's at 1,846 square feet main structure, and also an accessory structure that is a non-contributing structure built in 1940 and is 2,199 square feet. The property is at Northborough Park Historic District, and it's zoned single-family high density 14, context 2. The applicant is here, and he's gonna do a presentation of the request, and then after that, staff will continue the presentation.
Have you been sworn in, sir? Have you been sworn in?
Earlier, yeah.
Okay.
I've been here the whole time. Hi, my name is George Janitis with Biltmore Contracting, and I'm here today to speak to you about the demolition of this non-contributing accessory building. The apartments in the back are in overall poor condition, substantial structural issues, not limited to only roof and wall framing, which has led to facade failure. The issues continue to result in ongoing code violations. The MEP systems, wiring, plumbing is in disrepair. And again, the building is non-contributing. After careful consideration, the owners decided to not continue to rent these things out. They feel that removing these apartments will allow for preservation and enhancement of the existing historic home's character, and the decision is made with improving the property's overall appearance, functionality, and alignment with its historic significance. Here's some photographs of the north elevation. You can see it's in very bad shape. East elevation. And the south elevation, and it looks like there was something, a shed, a lean-to, or whatnot was added to the west elevation. There is plans for the future of doing something with the historic home. There's talks of possibly moving it, but it will definitely be repaired if not relocated. Thank you.
Okay, questions of the applicant?
Are you aware that staff recommends approval with conditions, right? Have you read the conditions? And
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can you restate that last, I think, comment? Did you say something about relocating?
There has been talks. There's nothing substantial yet. There was talks because the owner owns both parcels. It's 422 36th Street, and then this 426 36th Street. There's been talks of possibly relocating it to one of the parcels, building something new. Nothing is concrete yet.
Okay. I think I would just advise that that's not commonplace within our historic districts to relocate houses on the lot. There are two instances that come to mind on Washington where the houses were very close to the water, and there was an argument made about resiliency and preventing them from flooding. But I can't, off the top of my head, think of an instance where a house has been relocated, I'm assuming to for a lot split. Is that correct?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Just as a further background on this case, the property has been vacant for some months, and it has been subject to some code violations regarding the damaged roof, the landscape maintenance, and the pool maintenance, and other minor violations. The special magistrate took place last November 6th, and the applicant, the magistrate provided 180 days to the owner of the property to remedy the violations. I think the request for the demolition of the rear structure is based on that. They basically are proposing to demolish the structure so they don't incur an additional cost for the maintenance of a structure that is a non-contributor and it will be demolished in the future. The code of section 9449 states that no building or structure on a property or located within a district shall be demolished without first receiving a certificate of appropriateness for new construction. The applications for demolition and new construction shall be reviewed by the board simultaneously. So this is an exception because of the structure is a non-contributing. Based on that, the applicant already explained what the future proposed our intentions are, but we have not received any application on that regard. Based on that, staff recommends approval with conditions based on the finding that there is no basis of denial for the demolition request according to the conditions listed in section 9449D2 of the LDRs. However, staff recommends two conditions: that a COA application for the relocation or the improvements to the structure, the contributing structure, shall be submitted within 90 days of the board approval for the demolition. And also, while the relocation of the structure and future renovations occur, basic repairs shall be completed to the contributing structure to ensure that further damage is not incurred on the contributing structure. And this is based on the remedy of the special magistrate. That concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
Thank you. Did staff find any historical reference that any portion of this structure was original and maybe modified?
No, I mean it's listed as a non-contributor on the records, so we didn't go beyond that.
You didn't go beyond that, like the green card or aerial photography?
No. Oh yeah, Valentina is telling me that Anne, before she left, went to the site visit and determined it was nothing substantial to be preserved in there.
I have a question. You're recommending approval of the demolition, request for demolition.
Yes.
And as a condition, you're asking for them to submit an application for relocation.
For relocation or improvements. They mentioned the relocation, so they will have to, for the contributing structure, not for improvements to the contributing structure that they have been mentioning, not to the structure that they are requesting for demolition.
Okay.
Sorry, I may have not been clear. There are two structures on the site. There's one contributing structure that they have suggested that they have the intention to repair and renovate. And while they do that, they are requesting the demolition of the rear structure that is a non-contributing structure. So
Gotcha.
My recommendation is that we approve
So if they don't, I guess the bottom line is, my question is, what happens if the application fails for the relocation?
Well, they will have to do improvements to the structure. They could do improvements to the existing structure where it is located. And based on what was mentioned before, the board doesn't seem to be inclined to approve the relocation of the structures, but the structure could be renovated on the existing location.
So what I was going to ask is what happened if we approve the case and they didn't submit any, plans for relocation or improvements within the 90 days.
That's a good point. The special magistrate already has violations in there. So if they don't repair the structure as required by the special magistrate.
The code enforcement special magistrate?
Yes.
Okay, so this is under an order of the code enforcement board.
There was a special magistrate hearing on November 6th that requires them to repair certain parts of the main structure. One of which is there's a side porch that is in bad shape. They are required to repair those ones and paint the structure.
Okay.
I actually have a question that relates to all this because I'm a little bit confused. So what is before us today, though, is just the demolition of the accessory structure, not any kind of relocation. So my question is, legally, why we would tie anything relating to a relocation, why we would have a condition as part of our motion that ties to a relocation that's not before us. It seems, and this is a question for our attorney, but it seems like we should deal with it as it comes, that we should review this for the demolition of the accessory structure only, and then a new application would need to be made if they decide to seek a relocation of the primary structure.
Yeah, I'm going to recommend that.
I may respond to something. The reason why I was tying the two elements is because according with section 9449, the board is not it says, no building or structure on a property or located within a district shall be demolished without first receiving a certificate of appropriateness. So in this case, they are asking for the demolition without submitting the certificate of appropriateness for the repairs to the structure, the main structure, not the one that they are demolishing. So that's why I'm linking the two and trying to tell the applicant the demolition it's okay, but they have to move forward to fix the existing main structure. That's the only reason.
Okay. I think that I think that both. I'm agreeing with the board member, Kristen, who just. I think we should deal with the demolition separate and apart. I've never been faced with this sitting as an attorney, so that would be my recommendation moving forward.
What if we removed any reference to relocation? Because I think you're just trying to protect, because I think what you said earlier in your presentation is that there are code violations pertaining primarily or in large part to the accessory structure condition.
No.
And by demolishing it, they're getting,
Yes.
they're relieving themselves of that recurring issue. But you're, in the meantime, while they're considering their redevelopment plans, trying to protect the contributing structure.
Correct. And there are also code violations for the main structure that they have to repair within the 180 days that the magistrate gave them.
So I think the conditions are important in light of that, the overall condition, but could we perhaps remove reference to relocation and just specifically talk about the condition and correcting, I don't know.
I think it's for the second condition where the part that says basic repair shall be completed to ensure further damage is not incurred on the contributing resource. I think that's the part that pertains, because I don't think you need a COA to do like basic repair in kind, right?
You don't. I mean, the reference to the COA is because the applicant referenced that their intention is to fully repair the structure and do all the improvements that are necessary and actually split the lot and do a new construction the neighbors not. But I agree with you.
Okay.
Like,
or
the only intention is to protect the structure while they do whatever they decide to do in it.
Yeah. Or we could recraft that to say the first bit that I said, and then that if the alterations would require a COA application, that's submitted within 90 days.
Yeah,
I don't, is that?
I think the intention is a good one, yeah. And is there a way that we can just reword it so that our attorney and the rest of the board is comfortable with it?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my computer just shut down because it's not a good time for this to happen. I don't know why it did.
Okay, so that was the staff presentation. I kind of lost where we were. Okay, do we have any public comment on this case? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session. It's a really neat house.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, there's so much there still. Just has to be restored.
Yeah, very unique.
We're now in executive. Do you have a question or?
One question. I mean,
sure.
I think if I can go in here, the major code violations are to the rear structure that's non-contributing, which is also zoned multifamily.
Sure.
This lean-to roof is not original to this structure, and the only code violations to this building, which is the historic building, is paint and repairing this roof that is of no historic significance either. And this was originally submitted, we attempted to submit as a demolition only for the rear structure as the owner is deciding what we're doing. So it's our preference to have the relocation. That is neither here nor there. We will either preserve it in its existing place or whatever, but the whole intent is to restore the historic building and just remove the non-contributing accessory dwelling.
Okay. Thank you. I think your motion is still the same.
Oh, because there's no public comment though, right?
No, no
We're,
public
we're
comment.
ready for the motion,
Yes.
okay. I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 24-94 for 26 36th Street for demolition of the accessory structure in accordance with the demolition guidelines as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitutes competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. Specifically standards 9 and 10, and the preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach. The conditions include the following. Basic repair shall be completed on the primary structure to ensure further damage is not incurred on that contributing resource. And if the alterations are such that they would require a COA application, that application is submitted within 90 days of the board approval of the demolition of the accessory structure.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Approved. Thank you. Our next case is 819 Biscayne Drive, 24-97 is the case.
This is a request by Rafael Rodriguez of Studio SR Architecture and Design on behalf of Virginia Whitbeck for the construction of a 775 square feet accessory structure. The site is located within the Flamingo Park Historic District and includes a one-story mission-style building built in 1925. Which defining character features that include decorative arch features over windows and clay barrel tile roof combined with style parapet flat roof. The zoning is, the property is zoned single family 14, high density 14 in context 2. The applicant is gonna make the full presentation of the project.
For the record, Rafael Rodriguez, architect. This project, simple, composed of a little guest house, cabana, on 819 Biscayne. Really, the important thing is that, if you recall, Biscayne, it's heavily, the site is heavily landscaped in the front, so that you really can't see the front of the home at all, or the guest house whatsoever. The property is 75 feet by 125. There's an existing pool at the rear, and then there's an existing storage shed that was built over the years, which is in the process of falling down. The concept involved using the pool and the center of the pool to be the center line of the structure. This is the existing main house, rear elevation, and then the southeast corner. The top photographs show the pool area, and then the red highlight shows where the accessory structure is actually going, both on the southeast corner and the east. That structure that's there now is that storage structure, which is going to be demolished. So we have the existing site plan showing the main house, the pool, the storage area, and then on the proposed site plan, we have the structure, which is the main, the structure, the pool house structure, centered on the pool, and the same width as the pool, which is 15 feet. If you take the setback side is 5 feet, side yard, and then rear yard is 5 feet for an accessory structure. The structure is 25 feet 10 inches by 15 feet. Same as the pool, really comprises of a loggia, sort of a living area, little kitchenette, a pool bath accessible from the exterior, and then a storage area accessible from the rear of the structure. Second floor is accessible with a stair, circular stair up to the second floor, and then actually the second floor is the whole entire bedroom. Has a balcony in the front and a balcony on the south side. A roof plan, it's a flat roof, same as the main house, with parapets. The parapets do come from the main house parapets. We incorporate that design into the guest house. So we have the east elevation, which is basically the front of the guest house. Very simple, 3 arches with French doors behind them. You have a balcony on the second floor with French doors. There's a canopy above that, and then the flat roof with a parapet, which mimics the parapet on the main house. This is the south elevation. Again, we're carrying the arch through in the loggia. There's a circular window above that, and then the balcony on the second floor for the bedroom. The idea here being to treat this element sort of as a folly, as a garden folly, and the client got the idea from houses that she visited in Malta and in Greece. North elevation, and then the west elevation showing the door for the storage. Sections through the structure, door and window schedule, which the doors and windows are the same as the main house, which are impact rated aluminum windows, and then we have impact rated doors, same as the main house. Renderings of the front or the east view in front of the pool. There's 5 feet between the pool water and then that loggia, and then a rendering straight on from the pool. Renderings of the other sides of the structure. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Questions of the applicant? We'll get to public comment in just a moment, thank you. Could you review the floor to ceiling heights again, and then how much you have for the parapet up top?
Floor-to-floor height is 10 feet with conventionally wood framing, and then we have 8 feet, second floor, and then there's a parapet wall. Top of parapet is elevation 22. And it'll be a flat roof with tapered insulation to scuppers on the roof, same as the house.
Do you think you could afford to take a little bit of height out of the parapet height itself?
We could, yes. Yes. Maybe 8 inches or so to allow for the flashing to come up.
Yeah, I think it would make a big difference.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? The applicant. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to public comment. I have a card for Miss Suzette Green.
Good evening, Historic Board and friends and neighbors. Thank you for your time preserving the future of the city of West Palm Beach. I live at 827 Biscayne Drive, and I'm contiguous to the property on the west side. I think it's a wonderful concept. I love the design. Rafael Saladrigas was a former colleague and will be missed. I just have 3 comments about the design. One is, and I believe Ms. Kellogg has already addressed the height. Obviously, this is next to my property. This property is surrounded by landscaping, I guess you could call it, on the front of the property, which exceeds the 10-foot height. There's also a line of Acosta trees, which are used as a hedge, which exceeds the 10-foot height. Consequently, I have more than 75% of my property walled in by landscaping, and then it looks like a 22-foot wall on the rear of my property. I see that Mr. Rodriguez has suggested making 8 feet 8 inches rather off of the parapet, 10 feet on the first floor. Maybe this could be 9 feet, and that would make a total of almost 22 inches to lower the height of the building. And also there is an air conditioning unit on the west side of the property. That's on page 6. This is located, again, adjacent to my property. On this property at 819 Biscayne, there are pool equipment that are also on the west side, and I'm impacted by that day and night. I don't see the advantage to placing this air conditioning unit on the west side when it could be put in the north side, which is faced by a garage. So I have a question about the air conditioning location and also the height of the building, but I think the concept is wonderful, and I hope it's successful. So those are my issues, and obviously they impact me personally. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment for this agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, would the applicant like to make a rebuttal? If you could speak to the height on the first floor of the accessory structure, and then also the placement of the equipment that's shown in the site plan.
I don't have an issue relocating that AC equipment. These are mini splits, and they tend to be very quiet now, not like the conventional old condensing units, which you could hear all hours of the night. But yes, I will make an effort to move that to the north side. Regarding the height, we have arches that are at 7 feet and then 316. I could probably drop the first floor about 6 inches and keep the 8 feet on the second floor. I suggest they're probably going to be 2 by 10s. So dropping the floor height 6 inches instead of 10 feet, I can make it 9.6. 8 feet, second floor, and then dropping the parapet about 8 inches. That should help bring the height down to about 21.6 or so. Or 20 foot 6 inches. Yeah.
20 foot 6 to the top of the parapet?
Yes.
She wants to speak again, is that okay? I apologize, we've moved on from that portion, so we're no longer able to accept public comment. Thank you. I do think I misstepped with our process while substituting for our chair. Is there anything that the staff would like to add for this agenda item?
No, just the final part of my presentation. The proposed application complies with the FAR and the building coverage required by the code, and also the setbacks, so they are in compliance with all that. Staff is recommending approval of the applications based on the fact that they meet the standards according with the code. The only recommendation from staff is regarding the awnings, that it should be lower a little bit to be more proportionate covering the window. That concludes staff presentation. Thank you. We are in support of the reduction of the height, by the way. That sounds like a good idea.
Thank you. All right, and apologies. So with that, I believe we can move into executive session.
Okay, with all modifications.
Okay, so we...
I do have a question, though.
Of course.
We've commented in the past before on how close a 2-story is with a 5-foot setback, and it kind of imposes on the neighbors surrounding when you see the height. Is this something where we could have a discussion, perhaps instead of having it width-wise, perhaps repositioning to give it a little bit more reprieve to the neighbors with a little bit further setback? Just a thought. I want to have a little open discussion.
Could staff pull up the site plan, please? Helpful.
I think that if we rotate the structure, we are going to be affecting the other property on the site, right? So I don't know what is better. What I can see is there is a window in the bedroom that is facing the rear property, right? So I don't know if that window can be moved somewhere else.
It looks like it's 5 feet from each. Yeah. So right now it's placed at the minimum that can be placed for an accessory structure, 5 feet from the side setback and 5 feet from the rear.
Which I understand. We've had this discussion before where it's just imposing to the neighbors. I don't know if there's anything that we can come up with that's creative or a nice solution to just provide a little bit of relief. There seems to be quite a bit of yard space to the south of it. Could we soften that up and just draw a little bit further south?
How do other board members feel about that?
Well, I mean, for a discussion, I always thought that a 2-story accessory structure at 5-foot setback is close. But not really going to go there. My thought was, before I even heard neighbor input, was my thought was why they didn't rotate it to begin with 90 degrees to get more view of the pool and the yard area. That would just probably be more enjoyable. But I didn't ask the architect that, but that's what, when I was reading the site plan, that's what I read first, Gabe, too.
So I just wanted to mention that Valentina Broglia, for the record, the accessory structure is allowed to be 5 feet from the rear and the side in all zoning districts, in historic and outside of historic, and it is allowed to be up to 25 feet. So typically, if this wasn't in a historic district, we would allow it because it does comply with the zoning code, even if it is 5 feet and a 2-story.
Thank you. I agree with the orientation. I was thinking that, typically, like, following the patterns of development of a lot of these neighborhoods, usually I feel like the narrowest side of the building is facing the street when there's an accessory. I'm sure you can come up with instances of the opposite, but if you're thinking about it in terms of it, if it were originally a garage apartment or something like that.
Well, I think if you look at the streetscape, or sorry, not the streetscape, like the bird's eye view or the aerial view, that's actually how the adjacent accessory structures are oriented.
Mm-hmm.
It's by turning them, as Mr. Murphy suggested. And if you did that, it would be able to give the additional relief that you were referencing from the
their setbacks.
From the property appraiser, it does appear that there is an abundance of landscaping that will have to be removed for the just for the construction methods. And Kristen, if you notice, like in the rear setback, there's going to be like exterior access door. There's an outdoor pool shower. There's an AC equipment, which all require slabs. I don't think any landscaping is going to survive there because it's not even a true 5 feet once you have all the hardscape. So, and I understand that this commission doesn't review landscaping, so to the neighbor, you'll get your wish that the landscaping will be gone. I don't know if that's what you want, but there will be no landscaping. I would suggest that we definitely relocate those mechanical equipments and features out of that 5 foot setback, including the access to the storage door, and that all be green space from the edge of the wall to the property line at minimum.
Can I ask staff a question about the AC equipment? Valentina can probably guess what it has to do with, but it's in relation to the equipment, because I know that over time there's been a difference in interpretation of how that code reads. So I believe that the code reads that the equipment has to be outside of the structure setback. It doesn't specifically say whether it's accessory or primary. I thought the current interpretation of the zoning was the primary setback, although Ms. Mittner and Ms. Hamilton had used the 5 foot accessory structure setback in the past. So I'm just looking for clarification on how that's being interpreted at the city level, specifically with preservation.
Yeah, so the zoning code reads that the planning and zoning administrator, Angela Van, has interpretation of the zoning code. Her interpretation is that mechanical equipment cannot project more than 4 feet into a required setback, which are the primary structure setbacks.
So this equipment would have to be moved regardless, because it's in an it's in an accessory structure. Oh, 5 cumulative, 15
yes.
cumulative, so 5 and 15, that's how it's working.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so if they're on the 5 side setback, then they're allowed to be 1 foot off the side property line.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so back to our executive session. We're considering rotating the structure, reducing the overall height, and the applicant stated 20'6" to top of parapet, and also relocating the air conditioning equipment. Is there anything else? Or would someone like to make a motion?
Do you want to pass the gavel back to me and make the motion?
The one thing is that currently there's no windows on the second floor facing the rear. I'm not convinced. I was convinced by rotating it. The structure, that is. Right now, it's the narrowest amount of impact to the rear property by having that smaller profile, and has 0 window facing the privacy of the abutting property's rear yard, which is something to consider with the landscaping being removed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you rotated the structure, you would have to revisit the fenestration so that it's oriented appropriately.
And the neighbor would have a larger 2-story wall where there's currently 0. Like the profile of the impact.
Oh, I see. You're talking, let's see, which way is this?
I'm referring to the rear property on Flamingo.
Is there a question? I'm sorry.
We're just discussing.
I'm sorry. a longer wall towards the property to the west, which is 827 Biscayne.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
Now I do.
Thank you.
Before I didn't, now I
I
do.
was like, okay, yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying, and I remember a previous application having a similar concern. Okay, well, I think someone should try a motion relating to however they feel about the orientation.
I'm probably going to make a motion that it not be rotated. We'll see how that goes. Kristen, you may need to assist me with the numbers for the heights.
Sure, it's 20'6" to top of parapet. And that was from the applicant.
And then it's 9'6" ground floor and 8' second floor?
I do not know that.
I did just want to clarify that rotating the accessory structure, it would still need to be 6 feet away from the primary structure for it to comply with the accessory structure setbacks. The applicant is aware that he's not going to have enough room to be 6 feet away from the accessory structure, from the primary structure, if it is rotated.
Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So leaving the way that it is appropriate. Got it.
Could the applicant give us the first floor and second floor ceiling heights? I believe that's what Mr. Murphy was hoping for. With the 20'6" top of parapet, what are your ceiling heights?
So from first floor to second floor, it would be 9'6", and then 8 feet.
Yep.
Second floor to ceiling, and then I thought we're bringing the parapet down 8 inches. So it's 1'2" altogether. But I can make that parapet probably from the roof to the top of the bottom parapet about 8 inches minimum to get flashing in there.
So it's a 1'2" overall reduction?
Yes.
Why don't we word it that way?
Yes.
I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number 2497 for additions in accordance with standards 9 and 10 as set forth in 9449 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony along with the application submitted in the staff memo, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically 9 and 10, and the additional compatibility criteria set forth in 9449. The conditions include the following: that the access door to the storage, the outdoor shower, and the mechanical equipment be relocated outside of the western 5-foot setback, subject to the I'm sorry?
In the northern, not on the right now it's on the west. We'll move it to the north. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying relocated outside of the west.
Okay.
Subject to the review and approval of staff. So there'll be no equipment or anything in that western setback. That the overall height of the 2-story accessory structure be reduced a total of 1 foot 2 inches, with reductions at the parapet height and the floor to ceiling height at both levels, subject to the review and approval of staff.
And then there is also a staff recommendation for a condition regarding the awnings being anchored to the wall at a closer distance from the top of the window.
Sufficient to say and subject to this conditions?
Your microphone's off.
Is it sufficient to say is subject to the conditions enumerated in the staff memo? Yes. So that.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, the motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, our next case is 24-96, 155 Pershing Way.
I'm not sure which one it is. This is what you just provided. Is it architectural plans?
Yes.
Yeah, that one. And then next one is the landscape plan.
For the record, Rafael Rodriguez, architect. We have approval of this project with conditions. We're okay with the recommendations of the board. I do have some questions to staff. Is that okay? Can I address them now? Oh, okay. So, interesting project, I will say. So, we found out a couple of interesting things about this residence, that the northern end was built, or over time was built in a setback. And there is a utility easement on that side of the property, which has water and sewer, and that goes straight to the west and serves all those properties on Pershing. There is a plan to reroute all the water lines and the sanitary to the front of this property, and it's dictated here with this easement. I have Mr. Rick Rickiness, who's the civil engineer who worked on this project, who can further explain the issues associated with this and why we need to move the house, and why we're moving it away from the setbacks on both the north side and the west side.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Rick Rickennis, civil engineer here in private practice in West Palm Beach. We worked on this property several years ago for a previous owner. At that time, when that previous owner was looking at doing some things with the house, we found out through exploration that, as Rafael mentioned, the northern part of the house somehow ended up getting built not only within a setback, but also on top of a utility easement. Right along the very northern foundation of the house, there's an 8-inch clay sewer line that runs and takes sewer from a part of the city that's west of here. And when I say sewer, this is not storm, it's the stuff you flush down your toilets. It runs over to a manhole east of the house, and then takes a sharp right turn, running down under the house. Somehow that oval part of the house that sticks out there of the existing house got built on top of that sewer line again before it came down into Pershing. So what we've been working on with the city of West Palm Beach, and have concluded with West Palm Beach, is the city is, bless you, the city is in the process of getting ready to install a brand new sewer main within Pershing Way that will allow all of the houses on the north side of Pershing to connect their sewage into that sewer line. But the clay line that's in between, that still runs in that platted alley, is going to have to remain until the houses on the south side of Sunset are able to connect into a new line in Sunset, which could be quite a few years in the future. So what we're doing is we're going to be extending the existing sewer line farther east, run it south along the property line between the two lots that are being subdivided, and then back over into Pershing so that that gets it away from the house. Raphael's plan here includes moving the house to the south, picking it up and moving it to the south to get it out of the utility easement, to get it away from that sewer line, which is, I think, a very good idea, and go from there. But that's kind of the issue that happens that's currently existing on that lot, and that's the solution. The city has approved the plans to relocate the sewer line. That's part of an overall set of wastewater distribution collection plans that have been prepared by Kimley Horn and should be starting construction sometime soon. I hope that makes everything clear as mud. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? And so is the relocation triggered by the lot split and the redevelopment? Like, if this property were remaining intact as is, would the house need to be moved?
It would be a really awesome idea to move the house. To me, as an engineer, it's a very scary idea to have the house literally sitting on top, the edge of the house, the foundation of the house, sitting on top of an 8-inch sewer line that's collecting sewage from a good part of this residential part of West Palm Beach. Not a good idea at all. So number one, moving the house off of that is a great idea. Raphael reminded me as well, because this area of Flagler Drive is very low and the house is low, they're actually also, when they're going to move it, they're also going to raise the finished floor by 2 feet to go ahead and get it up out of the flood zone. So kind of moving it over and raising it. So that gets it out of the flood zone, gets it away from the sewer line. But it's not like you'd have to move. You wouldn't have to move it. I mean, I don't know of anything that says you have to move it off the sewer line, but it really is a really good idea to move it.
Okay.
It's a potential, disaster if you don't move it.
Is the easement so I'm just trying to understand, so the property owner is paying, so is there's currently a sewage line that cuts through the property?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the current property owner is paying to move it because the city's asking them to, or because
actually my previous client, who was one of the previous owners, posted a bond with the city to move that line. The city has kept that money, and they're going to be using that money to pay for part of the relocation of that line.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Sure.
further questions?
I have 2 questions, and this might be for the architect, but the building is shifting south. Is it shifting east or west at all with the proposed relocation?
Yes, right now the building does not meet the setback requirements of 5 feet as where it's located. We also want to move the house 8 feet away from the west property line. Minimum is 5, right now it's 4.8 feet. And the reason for that is, kind of jumping the gun here, but on the renderings, it's clear that there is a huge wall that belongs to the neighbor. So the idea is to move the house a little toward the east so we can get landscaping in there behind nice high trees in the setback. I guess that would be the side setback.
Okay, and then my second question, the streetscape that was provided, that's with raising the structure 2 feet for the finished floor elevation to get it out of the, I'm asking if the
Yes.
streetscape reflects the
Yes,
raising of it as
it
well.
does, yeah. That's, trying to find it, I'm sorry, here it goes, yes. That is showing the new elevation 8 feet, 2 feet above the flood zone.
Okay, and then, sorry, another question. And then how are you addressing the grade change of the 2 feet? Are you grading up to it, or are you using more than one
Yes, we
method
have to keep the, actually, this is an example here. So if you see where this marker is, we have to keep that elevation, which is low. It's like elevation 4.5. And then this driveway pitches up to about elevation 8 at the garage. That's slab on grade, so we're also raising that portion to 8. So there is, you get water drainage in the driveway also. The landscape architect can address that issue.
Is the approach to the front door the same as what was previously approved? Yeah, where you had that rendering, yeah. Is that the same as what was previously approved?
No, that's new. That would be new. Let me just go back to the plans. Existing first floor plan as exists. This is the previously approved by the former architect, and this is our new proposed first floor plan. So you enter the driveway through an existing gate, then there's this turnaround, and then you proceed into the parking, which is on the north side. But this will have to be graded, and there are steps here as you proceed up to the first floor.
Okay, so can you go back to an elevation or a rendering with the balustrade that you're introducing?
Yeah, so right now, this is the balustrade system that was existing there. We're just reusing them, repurposing them, keeping the same design and style, and repurposing so they fit the this terracing and also make way for the driveway, the future driveway.
Thank you.
So that's shown on the renderings also. As you can see here, we're coming in low at the entrance. There's steps up to this terracing and then to the first floor. While the driveway has this turnaround and it does pitch up to the future parking. So there will be steps here to the terrace and then up to the first floor of the house.
What is the current finished floor elevation of the existing?
I think it's 5.8.
And then the current FEMA requirement is?
It's 2 feet above 6, so we have to raise it up to 8.
Okay.
2 feet freeboard.
And there's no freeboard requirement?
2 feet freeboard, yeah. So we're at 6. Let me show you.
So FEMA is 6, and the West Palm Beach code has a requirement of freeboard of 24 inches above it.
So then it should be
8.
more than
8.
Yeah.
If FEMA is 6, West Palm Beach requires 8.
The threshold on the survey says, at least one of the thresholds says 5.72. I can see that.
Yeah, it's below 6, so we're actually raising it up to 8.
Okay.
And just to confirm, the FEMA flood elevation right now in this area is 6. So as long as the house is being moved, the city requirement is to not only move it to 6, but to move it up to the 2-foot freeboard.
Okay.
That's why they've got to move it to 8.
Okay. I know it's a big change. I'm just like, is it enough?
Is it raising it enough?
Yeah. That's the point I'm trying to make. I mean,
yeah, well, I mean, I think there's the necessity of raising these historic structures to get them out of danger of flood. But there are also a series of ways, which actually the Preservation Foundation had a lecture on several years ago, a series of ways to mitigate how it impacts the street. So that's why I was asking about how you're like grading up to it. You know, seems like you're doing, I want to make sure it doesn't sit like a plinth, you know, above the surrounding properties, and that we're mitigating that grade change because I see the need for it, but in a very thoughtful way.
Don Scarman is a landscape architect. He came up with the driveway, so we can perhaps talk about that.
Sure. Thank you for understanding the sensitivity to that. I think that first we have to respect the existing condition at Pershing, and then obviously putting it on a plinth is an interesting characterization, because we're basically, we have an elevation that goes from 4 to 8, and you have an inherent hill. So basically the building is sitting into the hill. So there is a sense of a plinth, but with landscape in those areas that project or illustrate the building being higher than the existing elevation of the ground, will be blurred, for lack of a better term, with landscape. But we felt that keeping the existing grades from the road and around the existing, obviously around the existing perimeter, to be as consistent or as close to the existing elevations, and then add as we go up the hill in order to pick it up. So there's almost zero grade change between where the driveway meets the, where the garage meets the driveway, and then there's obviously where Pershing is to the south of it is obviously lower. It'll be it'll be more landscaped as it goes further south, from north to south, if you understand what I'm saying.
So where does the grade change?
That rendering is really the best illustration of.
Because it does seem like for making that much of an elevation change that we now have a lot of hardscape and in the yard to be making that kind of grade change.
Raphael, where's that rendering?
Yeah, keep going.
Next one. Oh, no, it's fine. Here it is. Yeah, I mean, so you're going from 4 to 7.5 up to 8 behind this building. So it seems like a very there's way more room now to grade and drain this property than if we were to build this all up and then basically wall it in. So I think it's a gentle way of approaching this house, I think more historical in its character. This illustration shows a black driveway. Obviously, it could probably be Chattahoochee or something that's more historically keeping, and that goes to materials. Again, unfortunately, the historic board doesn't really have any purview over this, which baffles me.
We don't have purview over the landscape, but we do have purview over the hardscape.
And shall we talk more? I'm trying to understand where your apprehension might be in what we're illustrating.
I'm concerned about the amount with raising the structure this much, the amount of hardscape, specifically at the roundabout in front of the house, and how that would feel from the street. Because I think we can all think of examples of houses that have been raised and feel really great and integrated into the streetscape. And then there's other houses that it doesn't feel that way. And I think that it's going to be coming before our board a lot over time, and I just want to make sure we're being really thoughtful about it.
I think we are. I'm not sure what more I can illustrate other than a grading plan, other than the spot elevations that were already provided. Is there any other comment?
Yeah, I kind of want to turn the attention to the two-story portion closest to the street, because I think that's going to be the most significant change. I frankly could care less about how you meander onto the driveway and through the this and to the that. Perspective will diminish that. But it won't diminish what you're doing to the front, and you're also amplifying and changing the roof pitch at that element, which may be a non-starter to that original roof design and the change of roof style. And I'm having a kind of a problem with thinking that's going to be a very, very big, blunt forehead that's changing the profile. And you're adding this chimney feature in the side yard, and that area to me is the most sensitive of in the mouth of all the things you're doing. That's the one with the nerve closest to the tooth that I'm struggling with, and I'm finding some agita with.
That's one of the reasons why we're moving the house 8 feet from the west side, because of those elements to provide adequate landscaping in there, and we're also adding a fireplace, both on the living room and then the master suite on the second floor. I understand the dilemma. I mean, we have to use the existing grades. The existing street we can't raise. We usually have to use the existing grade at the driveway, which is 4, I believe, 4.15. And then we're raising the house because of flood requirements. And also we have to move it away from the easements. So we have to do our best to mitigate all that. I understand the concern. Some of these things are owner wish to raise the house for insurance reasons and things like that. It's a thorough renovation of what we're doing. Is that your question?
Absolutely not. I'm referring to the roof. 9.
Oh, the roof, yes, okay. Let me get back to that.
The front 2-story structure, I'm unsure how you're doing the grade. I'm finding, I think, without a key plan, I think your section on sheet A301 is helping, but I think the roof change is that's the front yard, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the existing.
That's, Kristen, I think what you're, right, that front setback is,
yes,
to me, the problematic part of the application, and problematic, I'm sorry, that's a charged word, is the part that I think needs at least my focus for comfort on what's going on with this project. And it starts at the ground, it moves to the change of the windows, and then it finishes, for me, at the roof.
So the existing south elevation, the drawing on the top, obviously going by the photographs, the only existing remnants we have of this house is from the 1920s photograph. Obviously the...
do you have that photograph? I thought I saw
yes,
it.
I do. There it is, okay. So the condition of the late 20s is here. It's very blurry, it's hard to see. But obviously it does show a mansard roof. It's always part of the design, which is really unusual for a mission style or med-rev house. I've never seen one. It was just a condition. Also, the rafters all have to be reframed and redone. They're actually structurally not sound. So we thought to be more in tune with med-rev architecture to give it a pitch. You're completing the triangle, really, is what we're doing. We're completing the triangle there. We felt that was missing on the roof. This is the Pershing elevation that you're referring to.
That is, yeah.
I remember when this application came before us last time, and I'll start by saying I am thrilled to see that you're not trying to squeeze a guest house in the front yard. With that, I know that was something we differed on. But I do think that in some aspects, I'd like to see a little bit more of that application when it comes to the fenestration, because I think there was a strong argument made based on that historic image of what it originally looked like, although we don't have like this south elevation. I think that there's something in the fenestration that you selected that makes it feel much more contemporary than a contributing historic building. And so, I don't know, I would like to, I think obviously it's been heavily altered from what it was originally, which is clear from the images that you just showed. And so I think that gives you a little bit of room to interpret it. But I agree that I think the fenestration could use further study.
Just while you're speaking to the fenestration, the front door change, it doesn't, so you're enclosing that
Yes.
covered area?
Yes.
For me, I think Mr. Murphy called it a non-starter. To change the original front door in such a significant way is not something I could be in favor of in any application.
Okay. That's something we could look at.
And I agree with James about the roof. I think that the roof needs to remain as it was. You know, I wouldn't complete it. You know, it was always like this, needs to remain, in my opinion.
It happens on the other wing too. Like that whole second level is being retopped.
Yes, in this section here also.
Yeah.
So the mansard roof wraps around this way, so we're also completing the roof here.
And I can actually think of a few that, a few Mediterraneans from that time that have this condition. One in El Cid and one in Prospect Park, I think. So there's other ones that do occur.
Okay.
But regardless, I think the documentation is strong there for what it was historically.
Well, and I think to your point, it's all the more important now that the building is being elevated, that character defining feature remain. Okay, we're still in, I think, the applicant presentation, correct?
Can I say one last thing?
Yes.
Back to the landscape. I mean, we keep looking at these elevations and these and all of these black and white drawings, and it looks like rockets shooting off of off of a platform. In context, in reality, it's going to be heavily landscaped. That roundabout will have a 20-foot sea grape tree that will be characteristic, generational most likely. It fits into that corner of that building. The coconuts will be more like 15 to 20-foot curved coconuts that are at least historically are in those same pictures. The landscape is going to mitigate some of the I'm thinking bad choices or just weird choices over time that happen to have that building where it is in relation to the other building to the west. The separation of that building is important. Landscape is the great marriage to this grade change and the architecture. Granted, the details of the architecture have to stand on its own, but you have to also look at this thing in context. And if you don't, I think it's not wise, in my opinion. But I just wanted to say that to conclude our presentation.
Thank you. Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Valentina Broglia for case number 24-96 for alterations and additions at 155 Pershing Way. So this was previously a property that was approved in 2020. It had an original South Flagler address, but it was re-addressed to 155 Pershing. Case number 20-38 was the approval for lifting the house to meet floor plan requirements, new construction of the single family, and the addition of the driveway to access the property off Sunset Road, which then subject to a alley abandonment and a subdivision. And then historic board case number 22-45 was requested for the new accessory structure and modifications to the previously approval rehab of the primary structure. So the applicant today is requesting alterations to the main facade opening, rising the contributing structure to current flood elevation, a change in the roof shape, general site work, and an ad valorem pre-construction. The applicant went over all the drawings presented today. So over to staff recommendation is approval with conditions of the following: that all windows should have clear glass. On street-facing openings, casements shall be bronze. However, the applicant has told me that they're proposing green casements. The roof tiles shall be true barrel tile. The accessory structure, which was previously approved under Historic Board Case number 22-45, shall not be permitted to be constructed in the future, as it may exceed the allowable lot coverage and FAR ratio regulations. And when the contributing structure is elevated, it shall be to the minimum allowable flood elevation, and the structure shall be located to meet the 5-foot side setback of the western portion of the lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Do you have any public comment on this case? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
I'm in support of moving and elevating the structure for the reasons that we previously discussed. I'm also in agreement about the roof at the portion of the mast that, well, where there's the existing mansard roof, retaining that. But because of the significance of the fenestration study that I think needs to occur, I would want to make a motion to continue the case to the next Historic Preservation Board meeting.
I agree absolutely. This, from what appears to be simple application, is actually, the more I looked at it prior to the meeting and then tonight, I think there's a lot of issues that still need to be spoken about. The enclosure of the kind of that central turret thing, the changes to the fenestration, that third floor roof deck, I think is really potentially problematic. The size of it. But my primaries are, well, that's kind of summarizes all of them, I think.
I agree. Yeah, I think there's, at face value, it seems like rather innocuous, but then you start, and I mean, I appreciate that the previously approved plans are included.
Absolutely.
That's very helpful to see the evolution of the approvals. But I think there's a really exciting opportunity to restore so much of the detail that has been lost over time in this like mid-century modernization that must have taken place. And I think there's been steps, like I know there was like a dining room addition, like a rounded piece that was demolished from, and so I think it's moving in the right direction, and I think we just want to push you a little bit further to, really lean into those historic images.
Through the fenestration
It's a really special
study.
property.
No, I agree with you. I was in this house many, many years ago when the previous owner, who's an interesting gentleman, by the way, he took me through the house back then. So very familiar. We've done a lot of work on Pershing, so I've always seen this house. Yeah, I mean, I can restudy that fenestration, trying to see what that original house looked like. It's a shame that we don't have any records of what that used to look like.
Yeah, and I think, like, it feels like there's introduction of some window shapes that might not have originally occurred, and I think that should be part of these like arched windows, you know, in some locations. I don't know if there's precedent for those, so I would like to draw your attention to those as well.
Okay. You know, one more thing, and I really appreciate, by the way, I meant to give a shout out to the staff. The memos have really, opportunities happen when there's a change of staff. I definitely know that. And I think that, Anna Maria, under your helm, these staff memos have really improved at least my understanding of projects, the quality and the content. And I did want to mention that earlier or at the end. So I appreciate them and see the hard work that you're doing. And I appreciate the timeline. And so for me, I think I was pretty clear. I also think that there's a lot going on with just the east water facing elevation in terms of the amount of glass that's now being introduced and the ratio, and that's the existing wing. And I know that there was modifications approved. I'm on sheet 8203, and the changes again I think are really, really kind of changing the architecture of that building, not just in the roof line, but in terms of some of the opportunities to enjoy the vistas that you're creating. I think there's some possible conflict.
Sorry, possible conflicts?
Conflicts with the existing fabric of the building and what you're doing with the amount of glass, changing the all the window openings to French doors to enjoy the views on the first and the second floor. It's just changing. It's changing that kind of substantially. Particularly, I go back to the street, the part of the house that's closest to the street,
which is now the front of the house.
Not the front of the house.
Yeah.
But the east side does become the kind of the primary facade. The east and the south for me. But I just want to bring it to your attention that maybe it'll resolve itself with the window change, with the roof line change back, and a re-examination of the fenestration. But
do you feel there's too much fenestration?
I think there's too much changes happening on this east elevation. Moving past the front, getting to the turret, and then this middle piece that now connects to the garage is kind of like a very strange introduction of the architecture that has the two. I don't know if maybe it would be beneficial if you pulled up that sheet on 203. Or if maybe the architects on the dais see.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back to.
Yeah, Amanda, you have it.
This one?
You see what I'm getting at?
Would I like that?
Right.
8203, yes.
So the middle is the previously approved, and then where your hand is, where the cursor hand is, that part is just really kind of taking a new kind of configuration.
What we try to do is go back to the existing east elevation where this was demolished in this scheme.
Move to the left.
Oh, here?
And then go down.
Here.
And go down.
Here.
Go down.
Here.
There. That part.
Okay.
That seems like a little bit of a anomaly.
Okay.
With the way the wall meets the roof and the barrel, but maybe that's why I said maybe it'll resolve itself when you go back to the original configuration of the roof pitch. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, any further comments, feedback? Okay, thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to continue? Do you want 1 month?
Or 2?
2 months? You got a lot of work over the holidays.
I don't need to sleep that much. Let me take it up with the owner in this case, and I'm trying to shoot for next month.
Okay.
And then if not, the following month. I'll let Valentina know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I make a motion that the item is continued until the January 28th, 2025 meeting to follow direction given by the commissioner.
Second.
May I share something with you? Carol just reminded me that this is a drawing that Rafael Saladrugas did before he passed the last project he worked on. So we took cues from his design, and in his memory we kept that sort of the idea of his design here. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have a second? Did we? Who seconded? Okay, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll see you next month. Thank you. Our next case is 24-98, 3308 Washington.
Good evening. My name is Denise Cravey, representing LC Architecture and presenting 3308 Washington Road. The existing house is a non-contributing structure that was previously approved for demolition and new construction in 2020. Shown here is the decision letter and the approved design of the front facade. Here are existing photos of the house and site in its current condition. This is the aerial view, the demo plan, and the site plan. We are proposing a new construction, 2,849 square foot, 2-story single-family home and a 2-story, 808 square foot detached accessory structure in the Mediterranean revival style of architecture. The accessory structure, as you can see, is behind the main house, and it is set back 8'8" at the rear and 6'4" at the side setback. Here are some photos of homes that can be found in the Prospect Southland Park Historic District. Here are additional photos. These are rendered images of the front elevation of the main house and accessory structure. We're depicting design features that take precedent within homes in the surrounding district, such as the layered arch entryway and arched entry door. Shown here is a different arched entry and a 2-story with carport below. Here is another 2-story with carport below and a house with a 10-light window pattern. Oh, wrong slide. Additional design features here depict the standard awning profile and the roof deck. These are the main house floor and roof plans. We're proposing two-story home that consists of 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a covered back patio facing the pool. We are also proposing a roof deck on the main house, which is characteristic in this historic district, specifically the property directly to the south, which also features a pool. These are the accessory structure floor plans and the roof plan. The accessory structure doubles as a garage on the first floor and a 1-bedroom, 1-bath guest room on the second floor with an open balcony facing the pool. These are the main house and accessory structure color elevations. You can notice many attributes of the Mediterranean revival style, such as stucco finish, parapet roof, entry door feature, and railing design. These are just a few defining elements of this architectural style, all of which can be found in this historic district. And lastly, here's the streetscape elevation. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Could you go back to the elevations, please? Can you review your ceiling heights and your overall heights, please?
The wall height at the 5-foot side setback is 20 feet, and that's shown on this side. The wall height, well, the overall roof height is 26 feet.
Can you give us the ceiling heights too?
The ceiling heights are 9 foot at the first floor and 8'6" and 9 foot at the second floor. There is a step down just over the covered carport, 6 inches. So that's where there's an 8'6" ceiling height.
And is there I know you showed several precedent images. Is there a historic contributing structure that has that parapet detail where there's like the parapet with the, I don't know that I'd call it a cornice detail, but that molding detail that surrounds the top?
With that specific molding detail?
I'm struggling to think of a historic precedent that has a parapet that is detailed like that at the top.
We're not showing any of these images. There's some moldings shown at balconies. Some molding here, some at this balcony, this one. Let's see if I can zoom in a little. There's some molding on this design feature at the front entry.
Just to save some time, I don't think that there's a historic precedent that's detailed that way. And the reason I asked is because that's where, based on our compatibility standards, we review our designs based off of taking cues from contributing historic structures.
Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Valentina Broglia, planner with the City of West Palm Beach for Historic Board Case number 24-98 for demolition new construction at 3308 Washington Road. I think the applicant did a good job at presenting all drawings and requests. So staff's recommendation is approval as it of the demolition of the existing non-contributing structure and the new construction. Thank you.
Okay, questions of staff?
I have a question for you, Valentina. Thank you. Earlier in our agenda, you had a new construction project that staff was recommending denial for, although it hadn't been presented to the board yet. I find that there are some similarities in that item's mass and design execution that are very similar to this application. And while I'm not suggesting that this application deserves a denial, it seems a little bipolar in the staff recommendation.
Are you diagnosing
maybe not a deferral, or because I think that this project, and I don't know how many times you've met with the applicant, I don't know your review process, could use some guidance in terms of the immediate context of the street.
So I actually did not have a pre-application with this applicant. I'm not sure if Ben maybe did in the past. So I'm not sure what was talked about with Ben. I wasn't involved in those meetings, but personally I did not have any pre-application meetings with them. I didn't think there's no one story in the street elevations to this project, therefore I didn't think the mass was overbearing like the one earlier on the agenda, which is why I thought it would comply with those standards. But those are just staff opinions, so.
I'm more trying to get into the mindset of the recommendation, not suggesting that you didn't do anything, not in terms of protocol.
No,
because I mean I find that there are some well, I'll leave that for executive session.
Okay.
Any further questions of the applicant? I'm sorry, of staff. Okay, seeing none. Do we have any public comment? You must be waiting for the last case. Thank you for sticking around. Exactly. Okay, so we'll go into executive session. Who wants to start? You kind of already did.
I'll start. I think that there is a lot of very charming one-story homes in the immediate area across the street. To the 2 houses away, I think is gorgeous house. 3320, 3314 is a kind of a split level. I don't think this is the right lot for this house in this setting. And I think the mass needs to take cues from those properties. In the immediate street and not get their inspiration from other areas and kind of make an assemblage or a quilt of elements that they like that all work because of the facade that they took it from, but it doesn't work when you put all of those pieces together.
No, we're in executive session. I have concerns about the roof deck. I mean, we had that with another case recently, and I feel like that's what's kind of causing the design direction or driving the direction of the design when it comes to that cornice detail and that added height. Like, it just throws off the proportions. And I'm also just the balcony on the front, that it's like a solid knee wall, I think also needs to be restudied. And even the porte cochere, I understand wanting to line up that window with the second floor windows, but it seems that the spacing is off.
I also think that the proportion of the massing itself, not just the verticality of it, but it's almost, I know it's not exactly, but it's almost like 3 equal, and that is not something like that. The 3-part equal proportioning is not something that we would usually, I mean, I can't actually think of a historic structure that's like proportioned that way. So I think that is part of my reaction to it as well as that, like, for each part you have like one fenestration element. I think that it could be a little bit more playful. I agree with Mr. Murphy's comment about it feels like it doesn't belong in this location. I mean, I think that this part of Washington has a pretty unique character to it that we should look to maintain.
Any further comments? I think we're heading towards a continuance. Would you like 1 month, 2 months? Yes. So, okay, so we'll make a motion for 1 month and then you'll let us know if you need more. Thank you.
So I did just want to ask the applicant, for a 1 month continuancy, you would have to submit the drawings by January 10th. Is that okay? Okay, just making sure.
I'll defer case 24. I make a motion to defer case file 2498, 3308 Washington Road to the January 28th, 2025 meeting with the design direction provided by the commission.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Our final case of the night. 24-99 505 47th Street.
This should be a much easier case.
Thank you guys very much for having us tonight. I'm sorry, I'm kind of new to this, so we don't have a big presentation, but this is not really a big job. We're trying to, I'm sorry, my name is Rick Cruz. I'm also Nervous. I'm with A&R Construction. I'm working with Tim Steinman. This is his property. It's a rental property. We have, after inspection 3 or 4 months ago, we realized there were several issues that needed to be kind of repaired on the inside. And so we're trying to go ahead and upgrade it so that it's, not upgrade it, just make the improvements. The main exterior thing we're trying to do is put in impact windows. The current windows aren't functioning properly. It's going to be like kind, the casement windows that are in there. And then he wanted to close in the carport so that he could have a third bedroom for the rental property. So I think, I don't know really what else to say.
That's fine. This is not working, but I'll put up the presentation.
This is the current property. That's the carport on the side. It's approximately 10 feet wide, 20 feet long. And what we'd like to do is close in the front and add a casement window so it matches the other side. The house, the bones of the house are great. It's a block house with stucco exterior. And we just want to continue that across, put in the new windows around it, not changing the roofs, not adding to the house itself, just closing in that carport, adding a third bedroom and a second bathroom, and then again putting a family back into it.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions of the applicant?
Yes, thank you. I see that there's stairs in the garage area. You're not raising that to be flush with the existing interior
Yes,
space?
the engineer wanted us to basically raise the floor 6 inches inside that carport, and then coming from the house, there'll be 1 step down on the inside. But
it is a step down.
Yes, sir, on the inside. But that still gives them an 8-foot ceiling inside that bedroom.
And that's where I was going, yeah. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Is there a reason why the bathroom is in the front of the?
Sorry?
Is there a reason why you located the bathroom on the front of the house instead on the other side?
Yes, sir. For practicality, because the drain pipe comes right across that driveway, and it would be a whole lot less demolition, busting concrete. It wouldn't be an issue if you really wanted us to put it to the back of that room and put the bedroom on the front. I don't think that would be an issue at all.
Thank you. And there are some conditions of approval from staff. Are you aware of those conditions? And
Did you?
In the staff report.
we'll ask you later.
Sure. Anna's been working very close. She's been very helpful. Where were
Do
they?
you want to see the conditions? Here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The infill wall on the main facade, slightly to maintain the outline. So you just want it recessed? Yeah, that won't. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So you will comply with those conditions?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Forgive me, I do remember us talking about it now. Sorry, it's late. I'm usually in bed by now.
Me too.
You just want to have applicant or the staff put on the presentation?
Okay, so this is a request for Richard Cruz of A&R Residential Services on behalf of Timothy Steinman for the enclosure of the existing porte cochere at 505 47th Street. The structure on the site is a one-story ranch style built in 1951. It's a contributing structure and it's part of the Norwood Harbor Historic District. It has gable roofs and awning shutters as distinct features. Is designated as a zone single-family low density, context 4. The property complies with the requirements for FAR and building coverage. They're not proposing any changes as they are just enclosing the existing garage. That because it's enclosed on more than 2 sides, this is already counted as part of the coverage. This is a drawing that shows the existing carport and then the proposed enclosure. So this is the step from the proposed enclosure to the front. As we were showing, the bathroom is proposed on the front. Their laundry room is here on the back. So that was one of the discussions. They are proposing to just enclose it and put a window in there and enclose the side facade also. The staff is recommending approval with the conditions, based on the finding that the petition meets the required Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and additional criteria in section 9449C4 with 4 conditions. That the bathroom window shall match in dimension and style the existing bathroom window on the east end of the front facade, and the window shall be centered on the new infill wall. The infill wall on the main facade shall be recessed slightly to maintain the outline of the original carport and maintain a visual record of the original element, and that at least 2 feet of the asphalt shall be removed adjacent to the infill carport to be replaced with landscaping. These are the proposed conditions. So the existing window is not centered on the proposed wall, so staff is suggesting just to replicate one and do one to match the dimensions of the bathroom window, and then be center, and also add the inside on the whole element and the landscape on the bottom. That concludes the staff presentation.
Great visuals. She just walked through all the visuals. I said, great, yeah. Very helpful. Any questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
Should I start it out? You really need to swap the bathroom for the bedroom. You have to. You don't. That window, unless it's translucent, someone's going to look right into that bathroom, and it's also going to be a lot cheaper for you. Your laundry room is right there, all your water. So, please switch that. No one wants a toilet right in the front of the house.
I'm just going to put it out there for a conversation. Is the recess enough? I know we don't typically see a lot of enclosures. I see why it's necessary. It's a very small property, so it's not that I'm saying I don't support the enclosure of the carport, but is everybody satisfied with staff's recommendation for the recess and then the window that matches the proportions of the other smaller windows?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion? And there are 3 conditions, so there's one that you can't see on.
Go ahead.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 24-99 on 505 47th Street for alterations and additions in accordance with standard 9 and 10 as set forth in section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent and substantial evidence. In addition to the approval of this request, is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10, the additional compatibility criteria set forth in section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions include that the bathroom window shall match. Well, I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna say first that the bathroom should be placed on the back side of the new construction, and then the window on the front shall match in dimensions and style the existing bedroom windows on the east end of the front facade, and the window shall be centered on the new infill wall. Second, the infill wall on the main facade shall be raised slightly to maintain the outline of the original carport and maintain a visual record of the original element.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Your project is approved. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
And that is our last case for the evening. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Happy holidays.
Holidays.